Well, hello everyone. How are you doing? And this is in the way, isn't it? I didn't have a chance to really organize my studio, and I figured out I need to cover that nasty, ugly little plug thing there. But so there's something for the honey-do list. Hello, one-eyed heathen. How are you doing? And there might be two shows tonight. I'm still working on breaking down testimony from the town council meeting at Castle Rock, but oh my God, I just want to shoot myself. The town attorney and the town manager, man, they just drone on and on and on and on. Oh my goodness. But before we get started on Friday history, because I always do history on Friday, let's do the preliminaries. On the bottom, there is my Patreon. If you do enjoy this type of content, which is pretty unusual, if you would please consider becoming a patron. You know, people's life circumstances change, and I just did lose some significant patrons because life circumstances change, and not everyone can afford, you know, to support somebody forever. So if you can help make up the shortfall, I would really, really appreciate it. And as usual, super chats, of course, are always welcome. And I do have a sponsor, and we'll just talk about this briefly because I don't want to make you guys tired of hearing of this. But if you have someone in your life who's of the, I think it was like 3-year-old to 10-year-old set, this is a great children's book that has a liberty message in it that encourages and inspires children as they're looking towards their future to resolve to live life, not merely just to live like biological functions, but to actually have a full human fulfilled life. And this was inspired by the author Sean Dempsey when he saw how people were living in fear. And is that really life? In light of the pandemic, where people just voluntarily lock themselves away and cut off human contact, and we're just cowering from things that are just facts of life. And yeah, you can live like that, and you could probably live a very long time, but have you really lived? So you can find this at tale2brothers.com, which will give you an Amazon link, or you can find it directly on Amazon. And I enjoyed reading it. You probably would as well. And it is just beautifully illustrated. All right, so that's that. Let me take this off here because that's very distracting. And we're going to go right into the historical items. And I had a little bonus for you, though. 1 second here. Let me pull this screen up and let me pull in the image I wanted to pull in. I didn't have time to set it up ahead of time. In the LP news that we read, it talked about when there was agents that completely wrecked this house by mistake. We hear about this happening quite often now. And in the LP news, it said, did you the quote was something like, did you notice what, and let me make this bigger actually. I'm just going to cover myself up. You guys see enough of me. See what she's holding in her hands? The Gigliato, I guess that's how you pronounce it, family. She's holding a copy of Atlas Shrugged in her hands. So again, this kind of stuff where, you know, the government just completely can barge in and ruin people's lives for a quote-unquote mistake has happened since the 70s. But it's interesting that she was out of her wrecked house there picking up a picture of Atlas Shrugged. And if you look in this little box here, the wife says, every day I get madder. They acted like those German Gestapos. If they were representative of the federal government, we're all in trouble. And yes, we are all in trouble. So if anyone would like a copy of this article, this is from the Tampa Tribune, April 29th, 1972. I'd be glad to send it to you. Your patronage helps pay for me finding articles like this. This is from a newspapers.com subscription, which I do pay for out of my patron funds, so I can start to look up some of these things for you. But when I saw that the LP News referenced this picture, I wanted to see it for myself, and yep, there it is. She's holding a copy of Atlas Shrugged. Okay, let's put that down. Now let's go back to where we were. And what we were doing in these bonus episodes, if you recall, let me show you. We were going through the very first political action manual. I do have the actual manual. It's down at storage, though I just printed this out from the scan because it is available on Lpedia, as is nearly everything I do on this show. Some of the things that aren't are things from my personal collection that are covered by copyright of others, like Reason Magazine. I can't put up whole copies of Reason's magazines. But anything from the party, whether I purchased it myself, which I do a lot, is all up on Lpedia. So we're going through this, and we are on chapter 2. And originally, I wasn't like going to read it. We were just going to highlight it, but the information was so good. So let me pull this up for you guys, and we will go through it. Here we go. Let me see if I can make this a little smaller, though. Yeah, I think that's a little better. So, formulas for failure and success. It says the history of third-party efforts in the United States is not an auspicious one. With very few exceptions, such efforts have been utter failures or have achieved only minor successes before setting out on our journey to a rendezvous with destiny. We should therefore first pause. So he's going to go through saying, I'm not going to read word for word when, you know, it's not necessary. Goes through failures and mistakes that other third parties have made. And also, everyone, please remember, these shows are always participatory, so I love to see your comments. Okay, the first error, the single issue syndrome. It says, more than once, a new party has been launched as a means of mobilizing support for one specific goal. Well, you know, I wouldn't necessarily call this an error, because if that's really all you're looking to accomplish, what's the problem? You know? You see, I wanted to put, yeah, oh, but that's giving you the side view, but why not? Why not have the side view? So now you guys can see kind of the little bit of mess that I have here, but why not? Hey, that's that camera there, rather than the one that's right there. Okay, let's continue. Or the one-man band. Now, this is something I see with the People's Party. It's the Nick Brana show. And we were very fortunate that the LP did not turn into the David Nolan show. So it says a party is formed to further aspirations, usually of one man, usually presidential. Okay, I could see how that would be a problem. Nationalism. The party concentrates its efforts almost entirely on presidential elections. And we can fall prey to that, and never makes any effort to develop strong state and local organizations. Okay? Ooh, what's this? The Sherwin-Williams syndrome. And it's funny, this slogan is still Sherwin-Williams' slogan. If you've ever seen it, and I always found it slightly disturbing, perhaps because, you know, we're so environmentally conscious, but have you seen that Sherwin-Williams logo? It's the earth, and then it's getting covered in red paint. I don't know, that always made me cringe, but that's been their slogan, I guess, for a while, cover the earth. So, the Sherwin-Williams syndrome. The party spreads its efforts too thin, motivated by a compulsion to cover the earth, instead of concentrating its efforts in areas where it has a reasonable chance of accomplishing something. And he says, next page, that the first two are pitfalls, but the other two might be. So he says the role of the national organization must be defined, and Lord have mercy, that is still a problem today, isn't it? So it says I wish the LNC needs to read this. The national organization's primary purpose is one of fostering the development of state organizations. You mean it's not to do secret coups from state organizations that you don't like the results of their convention? Well, dear me, Mr. Bishop Henchman, I guess you learned that the hard way. To this end, it will provide recruiting material, locate self-starters to get things going, and so on and so forth. It also says the national organization will publish a monthly newsletter. We no longer do that. LP News seems to take the back seat. The national organization will arrange for national conventions. We do that. It will arrange for twice yearly meetings of the party's executive committee and state chairman. We no longer have that. We have quarterly meetings of just the LNC, but do not foster meetings with the state chairs. And I think that's a mistake, though I know the LSLA is supposed to take the spot of that. The LSLA, I don't know if it's ever been what it's supposed to be. And if you don't know what that stands for, that's the Libertarian State Leadership Alliance, I think, not association, alliance. And then it says the national organization will be responsible for raising funds to pay for advertising in national publications. And will set up the mechanisms whereby the campaigns of the presidential and vice presidential candidates will be handled. We do not do that part anymore. And I think there's FEC reasons for that. And hello, H. Reardon. It says, this is all the national organization will do, period. So we should be, I don't agree with necessarily this much limitation, but we should be pretty limited. There were opportunities we have now that he couldn't have even anticipated there, such as handling things like the national database. I think those things are properly the province of the National Party. The national organization will make no effort to raise funds for state and local organizations, and we still do not, and that is exactly as it should be. State and local campaigns or other activities. It will make no attempt to tell any state organization how to conduct its affairs. Oh, really? That's how it should be, shouldn't it? And that's why the 2 no votes to disaffiliate New Hampshire are no longer on the LNC. And the 2 abstentions ought to be ashamed of themselves. And one of them is Richard Longstreth, and he can get mad at me and write my husband to tattle on me like he did on Tuesday. And the other one, unfortunately, was Whitney. That is her worst vote ever. I think that's out of character for her, though. It will make no attempt to tell any state organization, okay, except for making sure that all organizations and candidates which use the name Libertarian Party support the national platform and national candidates. It's funny that he didn't say, well, I guess subsumed within support the national platform, he also means the statement of principle, since that was a requirement for affiliation at the time this was written. Each state organization will be completely autonomous. And it says, let's go to the next page here. This arrangement may seem to place an undue burden on the state organizations. It assures, however, that there will be none of the red tape and infighting that plague most organizations, and is in keeping with the libertarian philosophy of decentralization of power. The net result may be, for several years, there will be viable LP organizations in only a dozen states, and we actually grew much faster than that. But it is the firm conviction of the LP's founders that more can be accomplished by 10 well-organized state organizations with 1,000 members each than by a cumbersome, disorganized national organization with 25,000 members. Absolutely. And then it says, this brings up a point which many people are bound to raise, namely, why anyone should spend money to maintain membership, since each state organization will also have dues. And he says, naturally, we hope that those who can afford to maintain dual membership will do so, and he lists the benefits. He says, however, if you live in a state, next one, where there is a going LP organization and you cannot afford membership in both, by all means join the state organization first. And we still hold to that. And hello, JJ. All right. And then there's a summary as to why third parties fail. All right. And I absolutely agree with that. So we're going to go on to the next chapter, which I don't think is as relevant for us today, so we will probably just skim through it because it's starting a state party. We have now parties we've had for a long time. I wonder when we did finally have a state party in every state, though. I wonder what year that was. And there has been times where some have been nearly moribund. In my history or memory, it was either South Dakota or North Dakota that was in danger, as was Montana. But they've all bounced back. So I wonder when it was where we've continuously maintained 50+1. So he goes on, and we are just going to skim this, that you start with appointing a temporary state chairman, and let me see here, you know, what you do to get everyone together. Say you've got 12 people, you know, what kind of information should you give them? What is your organizational meeting, and that all material should be sold rather than given away. Now, that's not as relevant today because we put things up on the internet, people can just print it. But back then, they were even selling like copies of the platform. You really wouldn't get away with that today. And he says people tend to place a higher value on something they've paid for than on something they got free. That is still true. It says have people sign in so that you're gathering data. Decide on a dues structure. And look, here's that organization down at the bottom again, Frantonio Specialties, who was the official LP jewelry maker that I haven't been able to track down. Somebody one day will be, oh, that was my grandparents or something. And it talks about electing your officers. This is all just pretty basic stuff for any society set up like in a parliamentary fashion. And so it's your steering committee. And need to set up a checking account. And funny, notice here in the third paragraph, it talks about adopting a formal constitution and bylaws. And I like the way you put hyphen in bylaws. Is that the way, was that standard back then? Because now it's one word, no hyphen, no two capital letters. But I've seen in older documents, bylaws has been capital B-Y hyphen capital L-A-W-S, which just seems weird to me. And notice it does talk about a constitution and bylaws, which is not modern practice. And setting up meetings. So all of this is quite basic. Though I would suggest you could probably read this and use it as a template for setting up county parties. But I don't see anything like particularly historically interesting here. We're still doing this type of stuff today. And there is, at the end of this chapter, like a little checklist. But your state party should have something like this for county party organization. If not, we've got some county organizational manuals on Lpedia. And this checklist is pretty basic again. All right, so what is the next chapter? Remember, this was new to all them back then. Okay, now this might have some, the next chapter might have something we could use today, building membership. So let's see how they did it then. And JJ says, bylaws was hyphenated until the late 20th century. Just looks so weird to me. Let me see here. I just want to see what the chapter is after this. It's spreading the word, which there'll probably be some good material in there. And then fundraising, legal considerations, campaign strategy, okay, we're going to tonight go through, hello, Julian, building membership and spreading the word, and we'll do the remainder of this booklet next Friday. And I also have I've got multiple things, you know, to do for July, August, for our bonus episodes, but that's what we're going to go through tonight. So building membership. So we're just going to see what we can glean from here. This is interesting. It says, how many is enough? Well, many authorities have stated that if you can get 3% of the members of a given group to actively support a cause, you can achieve your goals. And since the LP must influence at least 10% of the total population if it is to become a significant factor in the political arena, this would indicate that we need to enlist about 0.3% of voters in a given area as active supporters. We have 1% of the voter registration rolls in Colorado. So that's interesting. So we've achieved what he thinks is critical mass. I'm not so sure I agree with him because it hasn't been enough in Colorado. But Colorado libertarians are weird. Well, all libertarians are weird, but I can tell you, a lot of people think, oh my God, you got so many libertarians in Colorado, because we've got 40-something thousand registered libertarians. But let me tell you what happens when we reach out to them. They're like, oh, so, you know, we're, say you're from the state party, blah, blah, blah. They're like, oh, I'm so glad you're doing what you're doing. Now leave me alone. It's the mountain man mentality. So it says it's a widely observed fact that libertarianism has its greater appeal in the lower age brackets. I don't know if that is still true. I became a libertarian after I was 50. I'm finding the lower age brackets tends to be where you find the socialists. So it says the average age of LP members is 30 as of August 72. And it is this high because one person 50 years old balances out to 20 years old. About 1/4 of the members are students. Okay, I don't know if that is still the case today. I don't know that kind of demographic statistics. And JJ says the hyphenation of bylaws was changed in the 7th edition. What's this edition that I have here? I've got an old Roberts here. Let me go back. This helps break up the monotony, too, of looking at this stuff. So, one second. Let me, here we go. Let me close this little window. How do I close that window? Oh, there we go. So, which edition is this, JJ? Let me see. It's the 1971. So it was changed in this one. Like it's what you're saying. So let's look. Let's see how it spells bylaws in this edition. Yep, it's one word here. I'm going to need to try to find the edition before this just to see it. Because I think that'd be very interesting. And actually, I would like to collect all the earlier editions because history and yep, that's kind of my thing. And what's interesting about this issue is it actually like did have like these like thicker tinted pages in the middle. The charts and tables were in the middle. And they actually were tinted. This one I found is in such good shape. It doesn't look like it was hardly used at all. But check this out, man. General Robert, he looks like a harsh character. Look at him there. All right, I'm going to need to get the 1951 edition. So what number is that? You said this was the 7th? Doesn't say what number on the front like the new ones do. But I'm going to need to look for the 6th edition because I've got the 7th right here. Okay. Back to this stuff. And if y'all did, dogs are barking. I don't know if you can hear that. But yeah, and if you guys didn't catch it because I'm just still all agog about it. Yeah, Mr. Longstreth wrote my husband to ask him to keep his wife in line. I can't make this shit up. I cannot make this shit up. Keep your little woman in line. Like that's gonna work, right? A libertarian. That's so like borderline misogynistic. I don't even know what to say. Okay, of course he didn't word it that way because then he's gonna get all upset and say, you're making up stuff. But that's how it came off. All right, let me try this again. That's a little tiny dog, believe it or not. A little tiny dachshund. All right, so we're back. All righty. So these figures indicate that the best prospecting areas are college campuses. I do not know if that's still true. That's not to say that older people should be ignored. That's a good thing. It says the people who do most of the work are the younger people. The people who do provide the money are the older people. That is still true. All right. It says there's only 2 ways to reach new prospects: on a face-to-face basis or through mass dissemination. Still true. And it says the former is more productive. It's far easier to convert someone when you talk to them personally. Now, I don't know if that is still true. I would agree that back then when you were relying on a leaflet, that is tough. But social media, it's not face-to-face, but it's very engaging, and I think that might be the most productive. So it's just, telling you how you can talk to people. That's fine. We know that. Outreach tables, which we still do. It says when you've gotten the names of approximately 12 people, 12 seems to be the magic number for them. Hold an organizational meeting. Okay. 2 other good sources of potential comforts are the local Republican and Democratic organizations, especially young Republicans and young Democrats. With these groups, it will not be possible to get a speaking engagement, of course, but many of them hold cocktail parties which are open to the public. But our very best sources of members, however, are organizations made up specifically of individuals who are fed up with one aspect or another of Big Brother government. That is true. And let me tell you where I found we've had a lot of success. And that is people where I found we get a lot of people who have been abused by CPS. There is a lot of people in the party who ended up as parents, good parents, having bad experiences with CPS. Nothing will turn a couple into libertarians faster than having to deal with CPS, and that's Child Protective Services. Okay. And on the next page, he gives some of these libertarian-leaning organizations. So on the left, the American Civil Liberties Union, back when they actually did care about civil rights. The Institute for the Study of Nonviolence. I've never heard of them, but I like that name. The War Resisters League, and on the right, the John Birch Society, the Liberty Amendment Committee, and the New Right Coalition. Today, at least in Colorado, we have something called the Center Right Coalition, and they are very friendly to the LP. And then it says, how, get a speaking spot and maybe do some recruiting. And it says when you speak to one of the left groups, place your major emphasis on the LP strong stand in favor of increased civil liberties, opposition to the draft, and to foreign involvements. Talk about the relation between the non-interventionist philosophy and peace. Now, it's funny here, he does call it non-interventionist philosophy. When we noted in LP News, they did not shy away from describing themselves as isolationists. We don't use that term at all today. But in the early party, it wasn't a bad word. And JJ says, Wayne can either run a business in a state party or control you. He certainly cannot do both at the same time. Wayne can't. I'm not going to say he can't control. Nobody can control me anymore. I was controlled for so long in my first marriage that I'm like almost pathologically resistant to being controlled. So even when he probably should, or he gives me good advice and, tries to steer me in the right direction as a husband, I resist. So pray for Wayne. That's all I can say, because my past makes me very oppositionally defiant. It says, in discussing economics, use the terms voluntarism and voluntary exchange rather than capitalism and free trade. These latter terms have different connotations to leftists, even libertarian leftists, than they do to conservatives. objectivists, and anarcho-capitalists. Explained that it is the alliance between big business and government that's responsible for the things that they attribute to business, and that the LP wants to put an end to this alliance. And notice there, Reardon, I'm not sure what the why question is to, if that's to me or if it's to someone else in chat. Notice anarcho-capitalists were around then. We've always been around, and we're not going anywhere. Okay, next page. I like where he's given the tips for reaching out to the left. Since many leftists are strongly community-oriented, stress the concept of decentralization of power. That's not attractive to leftists today. They are all about consolidation of power, but apparently then they weren't. And point out that in the type of system we advocate, individuals could set up their communities on whatever basis they choose without outside interference by the state. In talking to rightist groups, stress our opposition to taxes and regulation and the fact that we're in favor of abolition, not merely auditing, of the Federal Reserve System. In the area of defense, stress our stand in favor of a strong domestic defense system. Point out our advocacy of withdrawal from the United Nations. Use the terms capitalism and free enterprise as often as possible. Stress our desire to return to the Republican limited government type of system established by the Constitution, and our strong support for the Bill of Rights with special emphasis on Articles 9 and 10 thereof. It is not necessary to point out that we would like to go even further towards abolition of the state than they would. Oh, okay. And remember, back then, because this is pre-Dallas Accord, the party was explicitly not anarchist whatsoever. They were explicitly minarchist. That changed in 1974. But even with that, he notes that they would like to abolish more of the state than your typical rightist. Stress our opposition to communism and our belief that the best way to fight communism is to simply cut off all foreign aid. If the subject of the conspiracy, what the fuck was the conspiracy back then? Does anyone know? Oh my God, what was the conspiracy? I want to know what it is. And I will point out, as I do, those today trying to rewrite history, saying that the LP is not a capitalist party. The documents don't lie, baby. Okay, but I want to know what the conspiracy is. If the subject of the conspiracy comes up, point out that whether or not it actually exists, we would still advocate the same things we now advocate. So what difference does it make? What the hell is the conspiracy? Lest we overlook the obvious, it should be noted that in addition to the aforementioned leftist and rightist groups, there are a number of explicitly libertarian organizations and publications whose members are prime prospects for membership in the Libertarian Party. The only such group that's truly national in scope, and this is a freaking great group, is the Society for Individual Liberty. But there are numerous statewide and local groups that are well worth contacting. Since there are far many of these to list here, we will not attempt to do so. Instead, we urge all LP members to get a hold of copies of the following 4 directories of libertarian organizations and publications and look through them to find the name of potential contacts in their respective areas. So the A is A directory. That's an objectivist one. The Libertarian Handbook. I didn't know that was published by Mark Frazier. Mark Frazier is an LP guy. I've got the Libertarian Handbook 1972, which is one we're going to go through. That's what we're going to go through, I think, after this for our bonus episodes. Ryan Brown, that's what I'm thinking. The conspiracy being Watergate. But Watergate, I don't know. This was published in August of 72. Was Watergate an issue yet? I think maybe faintly. The trials were in January of 73. So, but I don't, and I know it was somewhat in the public consciousness during the presidential elections of November 72, but it wasn't huge. I don't think that would be something to be put in here in all, like, first letter caps, the conspiracy. Yeah, it was in the consciousness, but it wasn't a big thing. The plumbers breaking into the Watergate. So I don't think that's it. I don't think that's the conspiracy. D. Frank Robinson, I think, would know. Somebody reach out to him. See if he can help here. Okay, so the Libertarian Handbook was published by Mark Fraser. That is fascinating. Let's go to the next page. I haven't been able to find the Libertarian Yearbook. I do have a search out for it at various used book places, but no luck so far. And the SIL directory, that's the Society for Individual Liberty. In talking to libertarian groups, the only difficulty you are likely to encounter is the hostility of anti-activists, and that's like the non-voting anarchists. The arguments they will raise can be effectively countered by citing the points covered in the first section of this book. And a few final points to bear in mind. Make sure you have an ample supply of literature and so on and so forth. Okay, keep your cool, don't get into fights. Do your best to avoid being stereotyped as left or right. Avoid using the words communist and fascist unless you're talking about Mao or Mussolini. People today would do well to follow that, right? I love this. This is what I wanted to read you guys, because remember, this is pre-1974. And listen to Nolan. And do not use the word anarchist in describing the Libertarian Party. The LP is not an anarchist organization, even though some members, a decided minority, are anarchists. That changed in 74. But just like I say to the people who try to rewrite history and say that the LP was not a capitalist organization, I am not going to rewrite history to my benefit either and pretend like prior to 1974 that the LP was explicitly friendly to anarchists. It was not. It wasn't hostile because, as he said, some members were anarchists, but Nolan went out of his way to distance the LP from anarchism, which, again, after 1974, that changed. But I'm not going to pretend like the founding. There were founders who were anarchists, but they were helping to found a menarchist organization. A lot of anarchists distort this fact. I will not do that. History does not care about my feelings. Okay? And there's a little summary of how to recruit. All right, we're going to do one more chapter for tonight, and that is spreading the word, spreading the good word, the gospel of individual liberty. All righty. In the previous section, we noted in-person recruiting is far more effective. Okay. Every LP organization should have a public relations committee. I know in Colorado we have a communications director, and that I suppose would be the same thing here. We also have a membership director. So the communications director is outward relations, so that would be public relations, and our membership director is inward facing. All right. First and foremost, never pay for anything if you can get it at no cost. Okay? A write-up in the paper is preferable to an ad. Ads in general circulation publications are almost worthless. I disagree, actually. We're required by state law in Colorado to put like a free classified ad in a newspaper of general circulation in every county in the state for our annual state conventions. And it's this tiny little, just bullshit little free classified ad. We get people who come to our convention because they saw that ad. So if that little tiny classified ad bears fruit, I don't believe that ads are almost worthless. Okay. If you can get someone to donate ad space, then by all means take it. Ads and publications that are specifically aimed at a group with a high percentage of good prospects may be well worthwhile. And they did that. They used to buy ads in like Reason Magazine. And it says, in general, though, advertising money should be channeled almost entirely into the production and distribution of leaflets. Let's continue. Posters, buttons, bumper stickers. Did he mean to make bumper stickers one word? It's like pot stickers. Bumper stickers and pot stickers. Sorry. JJ, it's so funny you are mentioning Alice. I am reading right now a book called January 1973. We're going through it for patrons only. And in the first 2 chapters, it's talking about Nixon cultivating his relationship with Alice Roosevelt. I can't remember what her maiden name was, but she kept that name as well. And it's really fascinating, the relationship that they had. And the day that the Christmas season bombings of Vietnam took place, the day they started, Nixon was having dinner with Alice. Alrighty. And if I remember correctly, that's his eldest daughter. All right, do a first class job of materials. Okay. Oh, check this out. You should avoid turning out material that looks like it was produced by a crew of spastic chimpanzee using a potato block press. I don't know what a potato block press, but the image of a crew of spastic chimpanzees is just making me smile. And check this out. This printing and promotion handbook. This isn't something I would think would be useful today, but you never know. Because check this out. He calls it an invaluable guide, is virtually encyclopedic in its coverage of its field, providing instant expertise in all aspects of promotional work. I might try to find that. And then it talks about a newsletter, but have it look professional. Check out this. Check this out. In its early stages, until circulation reaches 250 or so, mimeographing. I'm showing my age. You younger people here will not have known the joys of mimeograph. You'll never forget the smell of a mimeograph. It was this blue on white. It was wonderful. I can still, it's like the smell of Play-Doh or of a, those little things you'd get at the amusement parks that were made out of wax. You can never forget that smell. Check this out. For copy to be reproduced by an electrostatic stencil. What the hell is an electrostatic stencil? Oh my God. Or photo offset. Use a new ribbon, preferably a Mylar one. He's talking about typing it out. Be sure your typewriter keys are clean. Oh my God. Oh, I would love to smell a mimeograph again. I would always volunteer in grade school just for that. I think that was the way I got high as a under 10 set. All right, get some official stationery printed up. It looks far more impressive when you're writing to a newspaper. Rubber stamps or mimeograph stationery look fly by night. And talks, this is so funny. It was difficult then. You know, today we're so used to desktop publishing. It was not like that then. Funny, he says, number 2, be succinct. I've looked at early party literature. It is anything but succinct. But I guess maybe that is subjective. It says, an ad or leaflet should not try to explain the fine points of libertarian philosophy or tell the whole story behind the LP's reason for being. Well, I've seen the early literature, and it certainly seems to do that. Boil your message down to a short, catchy headline and 200 or 300 words of copy at most. Bumper sticker, and here it is in one. Did bumper sticker used to be one word? Because he did it again. I thought it was a misprint before. Should be aimed at instant persuasion, but again, keep it short. Freeze Nixon, legalize gold, or vote Libertarian. Buttons should be aimed at creating interest. I got my legalized recreational cocaine button. That generates a lot of interest. No more than 6 words on a button. Distribute selectively. Okay. All right, next page. Yeah, I do, Ryan. I think I agree with you. 200 or 300 words wouldn't be considered succinct today. Like today, the whole idea, like with things that we produce, is to have lots of empty space. And I like the early stuff better. It says another way to get the word out is to do the talk shows. That is still a great way to get the word out, to call into the talk shows on AM radio. Whenever possible, give an address or phone number through which interested libertarians can reach a local LP contact. Obviously today that would be a website address. Radio talk shows are only the beginning. With a little bit of effort, you should be able to get substantial media coverage for your activities. That's not so much true today, that's for sure. Do not badger the media unnecessarily. Prepare all news releases as neatly as possible. Typographical errors and sloppy reproduction turn people off. That is true. Make sure the release, and this is still so true today because I've written so many press releases. Who, what, where, when, and why. Yep, use understandable grammar and simple language. Don't confuse the public with movement jargon. Okay, typewriter. We're not doing that. All right, next page. Keep your press release brief, under 500 words. We try to keep it on one page today, but sometimes it has to go over. Caption photos, enclose relevant backup data. Get your news release out about 5 days before you want your story to break. Now with electronic communication, you can do it the day before. If possible, present your release in person, okay? Tells you about scheduling a press conference. Check this out. If you're having a news conference, schedule it for a weekday afternoon. Avoid Fridays and weekends. Best location is a well-known downtown hotel. You can do news conferences now via Zoom. All right. Start all conferences on time. I like this. Do not lose your temper. Don't yell at them and call them a bunch of statists. Or say things which can easily be misinterpreted or distorted. When criticizing the GOP and the Democrats, hit both equally. Avoid name-calling and wild charges. Okay? And then there is the summary. And this is still pretty good today, except for like about the mimeographs and stuff like that. And a good starting a county affiliate handbook will contain the same things. But I really like this emphasis on going talk radio shows. That is still so important today. And we do not hold enough press like conferences. And in the age of Zoom, you can do it via Zoom, and because you can record it and stick it on YouTube, that is a way to get attention for your state party or your local county affiliate, or even your Libertarian PAC or whatever other type of activism you might be doing. Okay. Where'd I got this all out of order somehow. Hold on, let me, because my OCD will freak out if I don't put this in order before I stop, because then I'll come to the next episode and I'll be like, oh my God, this is all out of order. Okay. Alrighty. So that is it for tonight. I might do the Castle Rock thing tonight. I'm still editing down the blah, 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 blah from the town manager. But I would like to catch up. I didn't do anything last night because my husband had a closing and we were able to afford to go out to dinner. But now the rest of the money's going toward paying bills. But we did indulge in one night going out to dinner. And it was pouring and we got 2 flats. So, yeah, that was an interesting night. So I didn't get to put on a show last night. So I'd like to catch up if I can. But if not, yeah, then maybe tomorrow. Tomorrow is the protest. If you are in Colorado, actually, even if you're not in Colorado, if you go to Medicare for All protest, you can see it is taking, I've just lost my train of thought. Oh, there is nationwide in all the big cities in the country, rallies for Medicare for all. We're doing a counter protest, at least the LP of Colorado is, which might just end up being me and Wayne, but I don't care because there's nothing I love more than getting out in the streets with signs. You guys know that. I'm such a sign whore. So we're going to be out there tomorrow at 10 o'clock at the state capitol in Denver. If you are in Colorado, please join us. It's on the west entranceway or west side of the Capitol. We have some signs. Depending on how many people show up, we might not have enough signs for everyone, so you might want to have supplies to handwrite them. Oh, I think I'm going to bring my flag. Not my United States flag. I don't have one of those, but I have like a Don't Tread on Me one that I've been dying to bring to a protest, and it's been kind of windy, so that'll be nice. So yeah, I'll show you guys the signs if I come back live tonight, which I don't know if I'm going to or not, because I might watch another episode of Handmaid's Tale with Wayne. But I got to finish editing that council stuff. So that's it for tonight. And the fish asked, no, this is not ink. I know it looks like it, though. Isn't it cool? It's actually, it's not even part of the shirt. It's part of like this long line bra. Alrighty, everyone. I will either see you later tonight, but I will live stream the protest tomorrow. And before we go, let me go back here. Where am I looking for? Right here. Here we go. And let me close this. Okay. Oh, I didn't close that. So that's it for tonight. And yeah, and you can go, oh, what I was trying to say is if you go to Medicare for All rally on the internet, I don't have the website right here. You can find where these rallies are taking place in your state, and you could do a counter protest. That's what I was trying to say. And I would like to close with, once again, my Patreon here, because if you weren't here for the beginning, I did lose some patrons, not because they were dissatisfied, but because life circumstances changes, and not everyone can afford to keep supporting every month. So I would like to make that up. If you can and you haven't, please consider. Otherwise, you know, I understand because I'm not in the best shape myself. So I totally get it. But if you have the means, I would certainly appreciate it. I hope everyone has an awesome night. And you can see I've repinked my hair. Huh? Looks good, eh? But it fucked up my nails. I got to redo my nails because it like stained all my gel pink. And now it looks funky. All right, everyone. I hope you have an awesome night. Bye-bye.
Given, that's how we live it. Don't be mad at the system, it's simply how we've existed. I hear a lot of people talking like they politicians and choose to be an accountant because it's safe in a business.